When I coach people for career transitions, I ask them to actually track how many hours they put into the tasks we identified. And once in a while, this would happen. Alex, you said landing a machine learning job is your top priority, and you are doing this full-time. And you paid me hundreds of dollars to help you. So how did you spend 6 hours in the past entire week on the tasks we identified? What did you do outside that 6 hours? I could have done more. I just didn't want to. I figured there are something else in my life that I should spend more time on. And what are those things that are more important? This is something people don't talk about in any coding bootcamp, but it's way more important than any technical skills. Because once you take the steps to get yourself fully committed to the direction, to the work, the technical learning is just a labor. If you find yourself constantly struggle with managing your attention, like stay focused or your productivity in general, it's not that you are slow. It's not that you are lazy or stupid. It just means there are some deeper, very important questions that you have to take your time and get the help you need to answer. It's that simple. Because of how fast things can change and how much information overloaded every single person is in our modern lifestyle, you have to know who you are, what do you value, and what is your vision of the next stage of your life. You have to have something that drives you through all those, change is going to happen. The challenge that you are not able to see at this moment. You have to create that certainty inside of you. If you chose to skip this step and not answering those fundamental questions, your life is basically a random chain of goal chasing. The fact you are changing your career direction doesn't bring more meaning to you other than more financial security, which could be both motivating and demotivating because it's humiliating. It's constantly reminding you, oh, you were a loser in the past. You have to answer those questions so that your mind can constantly focus on the future and most importantly, the present. You need to have a clear answer to those questions just to bring them into concrecy. The goal is not to be correct or optimal. The goal is to bring an abstract idea into something attackable you can improve upon. But not until you answer those fundamental questions, you can't build your superficial daily activity, your efforts. You can't tie them back into something deeply meaningful and satisfying. The good news is those questions are super common and very, very, very important to the happiness of a person. And because of that, there are tons of psychologists, sociologists, philosophers spend their entire life study them, research them, and trying to provide something helpful, a guidance, a framework, a pattern to the rest of us so that we can accelerate our searching for the answer. And all you need to do is to stand on the shoulder of those giants and grab what you can. Career transitions takes months, if not years, so it is guaranteed to have all those challenges and uncertainties that will trigger stress and anxiety. The problem is, when we feel anxious, we tend to overthink ourselves, the process, into avoidance, without acknowledging that our thinking process is broken in the first place. Then we get even more overwhelmed and stressed because of the increased factors now we know and the decreased bandwidth because of our anxiety. And through this month-long, year-long process, we repeat this process until it successfully formed this vicious cycle that we literally validated our own limiting ideas into limiting beliefs, and we trapped ourselves in it. Yeah, that's right. Hi everyone, I'm Moon. I transitioned from a biology student into a machine learning engineer 3 years ago, and driven by that experience, I now help people navigate through their career transition. There are many things in our environment and inside ourselves that by default are working against us, so we have to take efforts to overcome that bias. In the environment, our society is messed up in any ways, and we are learning those wrong things basically. And inside ourselves, we also have the inertia trying to stay in our own way. Because we are all pattern recognition animals, so we tend to focus on the past historical data because they are concrete, they are real, they are vivid. It's logical to project into the future, like when you do data analytics, when you do any technical work, you look at the data, right? Therefore, if you are a loser in the past, it makes sense, it's logical that you will be a loser in the future. But that's not the beautiful part of a human. If everything is just about pattern recognition, it would be so boring. The key to change the trajectory of your life, which is just a projection of the historical data, and also the key to break your personal bubble so that you can expand a little bit, is to invest in the time that getting basic education of how human works and especially how brain works. There are so many loopholes in our feelings and cognitions that are beneficial for the species but not necessarily good for us as individuals. There will always be this tension between being yourself and being part of the society. If you're unaware of those loopholes, or you are aware of them but you didn't put them into practice, you didn't behaviorally exploit them, then someone else will. I remember reading this review about affect recognition where the authors pointed out that the general public much prefer to get self-help service being part of motivational or self-help group rather than seeing a therapist or getting professional help. And it's not only because of the technical infrastructure, but much more because of the stigma from the culture and from ourselves, which is crazy because that is something only exists in our head. And we can overcome them through some psychological discomfort. I want to throw it there because 3 years ago, when I was recovering from my depression, I swear to myself that I'm going to start this social campaign. I'm going to start this whole service and business that are going to normalize our stigma against anxiety and depression. However, 2 years later, I still find myself buried in anxiety and constantly beating up myself for being anxious. The stigma is real. You can lose your awareness if you aren't practicing it. Okay, I'm going to share some concepts and simple steps that I find most helpful when navigating through challenging situations like career transition. The first concept is sense making. I think this is probably most helpful for people like have very high curiosity like me. So if you think sense making as your first, not just a psychological need, but on top of all needs, like if you acknowledge you are driven by that, you become more adaptive and flexible to the environment. You still have other needs like your biological need, your financial need, your relationship need, but they are more like a threshold. Like you need to decide the most important question is what you want to focus on in your life. And if you have a curiosity soul, it makes sense to have sense making. Like you yield yourself to that need. So whatever you are going through, whether it's miserable, suffering, nonsense, and you always can flip it into something interesting. Okay, this is nonsense, but I'm going through it and I'm going to learn something from it. And that's what matters most. It's not the end goal. It's not the so many things that you don't even know if you really care. But if your first goal is to understand, and then you allow things be colorful and vivid as they always are. The second concept is adulthood mental development from Bob Kagan. It helps you understand how our mind moves from an impulsive, imperial state through a social state into a self-authorizing and transforming state. And the last one is psychotherapy framework, and just focus on one or two that's most popular or most intuitive to you, like cognitive behavior therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy. And the one I'm most interested in is creative therapy, which is part of the reason that I started this YouTube channel. And once you had those knowledge, which is totally free online, you can feel this like a buffer cushion you can fall back to when you know you can't afford seeing a therapist. Like you go to see a therapist not just out of frustration, but out of like you made this decision, you think this will be helpful. You are in a relatively comfortable place in trusting all your own decisions. Here are the 5 helpful subjects for understanding yourself or self-management. The first subject is marketing, because it's in this interface of money and psychology and art. Because it has a feel of money, it can conduct a lot of research, have many data that in academic setting, it just won't make sense. And when you look at like in-person sales, copywriting, or market positioning, it provides so much detailed knowledge about how human works as individual and as a society. And it also gives you the hope that because of those interdisciplinary knowledge, there are always people who know more about you than yourself. So when you couldn't figure out how you work and feel lost, you kind of have the sense of hope that someone else will be able to figure that out, and you need to get that help. The second subject is corporate management and strategy. A company is almost like a living creature because of how complex it is and how much decision-making uncertainty it needs to navigate through in this very dynamic environment, which is very similar to an individual. Like you have your agency, which if you think it as a company, navigating through this small area of reality. Because it is on a company level, because the stake is higher, we throw more human power, more time and money, try to come up with some knowledge, some answer to those very important questions. So if you learn those knowledge and you downgrade it to individual level, I don't know, it's just very cool. It feels like you are stealing it. And think about all the struggles, the decision making, the uncertainty you need to navigate through. Someone else somewhere must have asked that question, and if the context they are asking that question is more important, like more impactful, then there will be more resources trying to solve that. Then like map your personal question to that larger scale, then map back. The third subject is game design. I think this is very self-explanatory. So when you start looking into gameplay mechanics, the level design, all the art and the narrative went through designing a game, you kind of have this gut view of your own personal life, but from like a gut view, a third-person view. Two concepts I found particularly interesting recently. One is called the illusory attitude. It's basically saying the willingness of accepting an arbitrary rule of the game so that you can play the game. So it's very similar to like a social contract. You have a basic respect to the rule of the game. However, in sociology, the goal is kind of for the stability of the society. But in game design, this illusory attitude is for the fun of it. And when I felt so stuck with, okay, this is not right, that is not right, when all my attention went to argue and negotiate with the tiny pieces of the rule, I tend to lose the big picture. I tend to lose why I wanted to play this game in the first place. And to know the existence of this rule, it's kind of give me a feeling like, oh, there are so many other people understand me. Now, like, you should have a peace of mind and focus where you really should focus on. The second concept is the science or the pattern really of having fun. So in 70s, 80s, when people design a game, we really think what makes something fun. Like it's super, super abstract. So there are a lot of failures in making a game. People put so much effort into it, but it's a flop. And over the past 30, 40 years, when there are more and more efforts went into it and people see more pattern, okay, this thing needs to happen to stay balanced in this way to keep the game fun. So it's basically overall in an industry level, the human knowledge is growing. And then we started seeing fun as a science. That's probably too long for the topic of this video. The fourth one is executive coaching. So executive coaching is very close to life coaching. So those executives, they spend $1,000 hiring people to coach themselves to navigate through their personal life and their careers. So what kind of question framework that works for them? Probably going to be very helpful for you. A great resource which I just finished recently is this self-coaching course from Stanford. And it's online, it's for free. The last one is language and writing. Writing is this reliable way of developing your coherent understanding of the world. If you are a programmer, you know how important the computation power itself is the hardware. So to extend that hardware capacity of yourself, you need some of process, like sometimes it's creative endeavor, sometimes it's writing, which is the most straightforward way because it's language. And language gives you the cue of making new connections. Like when you try to understand yourself, which because that's the biggest blocker of you entering this world, you try to bring your subconscious stuff into conscious. And that is just hard. But the language gives you this hint. It is that tip of iceberg. When you look at why did I use that specific word at that moment? Now, 3 small steps to keep yourself in a mental state to be able to be productive. I want to make this as simple as possible because complexity is the enemy of execution. However, if you still think it's not simple enough to fit into your life, keep trimming it down until it can fit into it. First, log what you did today and choose 1 or 2 that you will do better or at least different the next time. And this is the iterative approach to turn something very big, vague into something very concrete that you can pinpoint without being overwhelmed. So any changes you want to make to your life, they need to be very small and heuristic so that you can get started and stay adaptive. Second, role play the help you think you need to get or the person you want to model, whether it's your coach or mentor, or it's a person, a friend, or a celebrity you want to model after. Once you allow yourself to get out of your existing identity, it's much easier to see things they originally are and be creative. So usually the way I do it is I ask my husband to play me. You can ask your partner or your friend to pretend they are you and you are the person you want to be or the help you want to get, and start talking back to yourself and what you should do next. If you can't find someone to do that role play with you in your current life, you can join a community or you can join our Discord and message me. I will find someone for you. The last one is to make sure you sleep 8 hours at a fixed schedule. And it's not your willingness to do that, but you actually did that. If you're already there, then look at other parts of your biology, your diet, workout, your hydration. That's all for today. I hope you can leave a comment and tell me if there's anything that I shared today is actually helpful for you, and what is the biggest blocker when you look at your career transition holistically. As always, I hope you have an awesome day and see you next time.